A millionaire found a poor single mother living in his country house, and his reaction shocked the entire region. Before we start the story, leave in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. Marcus Ellington had been driving for 6 straight hours when he finally spotted the cabin. 6 hours on the road. 6 hours escaping from Atlanta. From endless meetings, from partners who wouldn't stop calling, from a life that had started to suffocate him like a suit 2 sizes too small. 6 hours dreaming of the absolute silence of the North Carolina mountains, of the smell of pine, of the doing nothing that he deserved after 3 years without taking a single day off. The Ellington family cabin was there, exactly as he remembered it. Dark wood, wide porch, surrounded by trees that seemed to guard ancient secrets. His grandfather had built that place with his own hands, and Marcus hadn't been back since his funeral, 8 years ago. But now he needed that refuge more than ever. Marcus parked his imported car at the dirt entrance, took a deep breath, and smiled for the first time in weeks. Silence. Peace. No urgent emails, no emergency calls, no spreadsheets of results. Just him and nature. He grabbed his Italian leather suitcase, straightened his blazer wrinkled from the trip, and walked to the front door with the key already in hand. He turned the lock, pushed the door, and stepped inside. And then his brain stopped working. There was a woman in the kitchen, a woman in a floral apron, hair pulled back in a messy bun, stirring a pot on the stove as if that were the most natural thing in the world. The smell of tomato sauce filled his nostrils. Marcus blinked, once, twice. The woman kept stirring the pot, humming softly a song he didn't recognize. That's when something hit his shin. He looked down and saw a boy about 7 years old, armed with a plastic sword, staring at him with the fury of a small medieval warrior. "Are you the dragon?" the boy asked, completely serious. Marcus opened his mouth. No sound came out. "Liam, how many times have I told you not to attack strangers?" The voice came from the kitchen, but the woman still hadn't turned around. "But Mom, he looks like a dragon. Look at his face." Marcus finally found his voice, which came out 3 octaves higher than normal. "Excuse me." The woman turned around, and time froze. She had brown eyes, the kind of brown that seemed to contain all the colors of autumn. Freckles on her nose, a spot of sauce on her cheek, and an expression that went from shock to fury in approximately half a second. "Who are you?" she asked, holding the wooden spoon as if it were a weapon. "Who am I?" Marcus repeated, incredulous. "Who are you?" "This is my house." "Your house?" "My house." That's when he saw it. The leather sofa his grandfather had loved so much was covered by a colorful crocheted blanket. On the coffee table, there was a lime green plastic dinosaur, 3 headless dolls, and what appeared to be the mortal remains of a jelly sandwich. Marcus stared at the dinosaur. The dinosaur seemed to stare back at him. "Why is there a Tyrannosaurus on my sofa?" "It's a Brachiosaurus," the boy corrected, still holding the sword. "Tyrannosauruses have small arms. Everyone knows that." "I didn't know that," Marcus responded, not understanding why he was discussing paleontology with an invading child. "Mommy." "Mom?" Liam. A little girl about 4 years old came running from the hallway, her blonde hair flying, holding a stuffed rabbit by what was left of one ear. "Mommy, Mr. Carrot peed in the bed again." "Emma, Mr. Carrot is stuffed? Stuffed animals don't pee." "This one does." Marcus felt a vain pulse in his temple. He had planned this trip for weeks. He had visualized every detail. Sleeping in late, having coffee while looking at the mountains, maybe reading a book, definitely not interacting with any human being for at least 10 days. At no point in that visualization was there an entire family living in his cabin. "Listen here," he said, trying to sound authoritative, but his voice came out more like a squeak of desperation. "I don't know who you people are. I don't know how you got in here, but I'm calling the police right now." He pulled his phone from his pocket with a dramatic gesture. The woman put down the wooden spoon and walked toward him. There was something in her eyes now, something that made Marcus take an involuntary step back. "Go ahead and call," she said, her voice firm as steel. "Call the police, call the sheriff, call the governor if you want. But before you do that, take a good look at these 2 children." Marcus looked. The boy had lowered his sword. The little girl was hugging the stuffed rabbit against her chest. Both were staring at him with enormous eyes. "I have somewhere to go," Clara continued, and her voice trembled almost imperceptibly. I'll sleep in the car if I need to. It wouldn't be the first time. But they can't. They need a roof, a bed, a safe place. And until 3 hours ago, that place was here. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Marcus looked at the woman, at the children, at the dinosaur. Brachiosaurus on the sofa, at the pot bubbling on the stove. What happened 3 hours ago? He asked, against his own will. Clara took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice had lost all its previous bravado. We were evicted. The apartment owner sold the building, gave everyone 5 days to leave. Most had family, friends, somewhere to go. I had nothing, nobody. She swallowed hard. A neighbor told me about this cabin, said it had been abandoned for years, that nobody came here. She was wrong. Clearly. Another silence. The little girl, Emma, let go of the rabbit and walked toward Marcus with hesitant little steps. He backed away as if she were radioactive. "Mister," she said, looking up with enormous blue eyes, "you're very tall. Does your head hurt from being up there?" Marcus blinked. "What?" "It's just that Liam said that tall people get headaches because the body can't send thoughts that far." "That doesn't make any sense." "Yes, it does," Liam intervened. "The teacher said the brain sends electrical signals. Electrical signals lose strength over distance. You would learn that if you weren't a dumb dragon. I have a degree in systems engineering from MIT. Marcus didn't know why he was defending himself to a 7-year-old. "What's MIT?" "It's a university. One of the best in the world. Better than Emma's school? Emma's school is a daycare." "So what?" "She learned to tie her shoes last week. Do you know how to tie shoes?" Marcus looked at his own feet. Italian loafers. No laces. The boy followed his gaze and smiled triumphantly. "That's what I thought." Clara, despite everything, let out a sound that could have been a muffled laugh. When Marcus looked at her, her face was carefully neutral, but there was a gleam in her eyes that wasn't there before. "Sorry about that," she said. "Liam is in a phase of questioning authority." "It's not a phase," the boy corrected. "It's a lifestyle." Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. This couldn't be happening. He had planned silence, solitude, peace. Not a mother with autumn eyes, a revolutionary boy and a little girl who thought her stuffed rabbit had bladder problems. "All right," he said finally, the words coming out before he could stop them. "One night." Clara raised her eyebrows. "What? One night," he repeated, already regretting it. "You can stay one night. Tomorrow we'll figure this out. He looked around, searching for an exit. "I'll sleep in the back room." "The back room is where we are." "Then I'll sleep on the sofa." "The sofa has a brachiosaurus." "Then I'll sleep in the car." Marcus exploded. "I'll sleep on the roof. I'll sleep hanging from a tree. I don't care. I need a minute of silence to process that my cabin was invaded by a family that includes a 7-year-old paleontologist and a girl who talks to incontinent rabbits." Another silence. Then Emma tugged at the hem of his pants. "Mister?" "What?" he asked, exhausted. "Do you want a cookie?" "Mommy made cookies. It helps when we're nervous." Marcus looked at those blue eyes, at that serious little face, at the worn rabbit hanging from her little hand. And something inside him, something he didn't even know still existed, broke a little. "Yes," he said, his voice suddenly hoarse. "I think I want a cookie." Emma smiled, a smile that lit up her whole face, and ran off to the kitchen shouting, "Mommy, the dragon wants a cookie." Clara looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't decipher. "Thank you," she said softly. "For tonight." Marcus just nodded, not trusting his own voice. He had come to the mountains looking for peace. But as he watched Emma come running back with a star-shaped cookie, as Liam went back to attacking imaginary enemies with his plastic sword, as Clara returned to the stove to save the tomato sauce that was starting to burn, Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling that his life, carefully planned and rigidly controlled, had just taken a detour for which there was no GPS. And the strangest part? A tiny part of him, a part he would never admit out loud, wasn't entirely unhappy about it. The star-shaped cookie tasted like butter, cinnamon, and regret. Marcus chewed slowly, sitting in a chair he didn't recognize, in a kitchen that smelled of home-cooked food for the first time in almost a decade. On the other side of the table, Clara Dawson watched him with crossed arms and an expression that clearly said, "I'm waiting for you to realize the size of the mess you just got yourself into." He swallowed the cookie. "So," Clara began before he could open his mouth, "we need to establish some rules." Marcus choked. "Rules? You're establishing rules? In my house?" "Exactly," She pulled out a chair and sat down as if she were about to conduct a board meeting. First rule: the children go to bed at 8. No exceptions. If you make noise after that time, you'll answer to me. I'll answer to you. You will. In my own house. I'm glad we're understanding each other. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Clara had already moved on. Second rule: the hallway bathroom belongs to the children from 7 to 8 in the morning. You can use the master bedroom bathroom. The master bedroom is mine. How convenient, then. He felt that vein in his temple pulse again. Third rule, Clara continued, relentless: I cook. You wash the dishes. Why would I wash the dishes? Because you're going to eat the food. I didn't ask you to cook. You didn't ask for a cookie either, but you ate 3. Marcus looked at his own hand. Indeed, there were crumbs. When had he grabbed the second and third cookie? They're good cookies, he muttered, defensive. I know. Fourth rule: there's more. Mr. Ellington, I'm just getting started. Clara pulled a small notepad from her apron pocket. A notepad. She had a notepad of rules. Marcus felt a mixture of horror and something that could be reluctant admiration. Fourth rule: Liam is in a questioning phase. He's going to ask things, many things, about everything. You're not obligated to answer, but if you answer wrong, he'll correct you in front of everyone. What do you mean, answer wrong? Yesterday, he asked the mailman what the terminal velocity of an African swallow was. The mailman said he didn't know. Liam spent 15 minutes explaining the difference between African and European swallows. That's from a movie. I know. He knows too. The mailman didn't know. It was embarrassing for everyone. Marcus rubbed his temples. And Emma? Clara's face softened a little. Emma is simpler. She just needs you to pretend that Mr. Carrot is real. The stuffed rabbit. He has feelings, apparently. Feelings and bladder problems. Nobody's perfect. Before Marcus could process any of this information, Liam appeared in the kitchen doorway holding a thick book that seemed to weigh more than he did. Mr. Dragon, what's your opinion on black holes? Marcus blinked. My opinion? Yes, I'm writing a report. I need diverse perspectives. You're 7 years old. And how old are you? 50. You should know more about black holes than I do, but clearly that's not the case, so I'm giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Marcus looked at Clara for help. She just shrugged. I warned you. Black holes are. Marcus began, trying to remember anything from his physics classes. Holes that are black, in space. Liam stared at him with the contempt reserved for inferior beings. That was disappointing on levels I can't even articulate. He wrote something in the book. I'll record your answer as insufficient. You're going to record it? For future reference. Good night, Mr. Dragon. And he left, carrying the book as if it were a shield. Marcus was silent for a moment. Has he always been like this? Since he learned to talk, his first words were, why, and technically. Clara put the notepad back in her pocket. Look, I know this isn't what you planned. It's not what I planned either. The hardness in her voice wavered, just for a second. I had a job. I had an apartment. It wasn't a big deal, but it was ours. She looked away. Things just fell apart, all at once. And when you're falling, you don't have time to choose where you're going to land. Marcus recognized that tone. He had heard it in his own voice on long nights at the office, when success felt like a golden prison. Why this cabin? He asked, softer now. Of all places. Clara gave a sad smile. The neighbor said the owner had died years ago, that the family had forgotten the place existed. It seemed like the kind of place where forgotten people could hide for a while. Something tightened in Marcus's chest. Forgotten people. Is that how she saw herself? Clara? You don't need to. She stood up, starting to collect the plates. You don't need to feel sorry. You just need to give us tonight. Tomorrow I'll figure out something else. With 2 children? No money? In the middle of the mountains? I'll manage. I always manage. The way she said it, as if managing were the only option she knew, made Marcus want to say something. Anything. But Emma appeared in the doorway before he found the words. Mommy? Mr. Carrot wants to know if the dragon is going to read us a story. Emma, Mr. Ellington isn't going to. I'll read, Marcus heard his own voice say. Clara and Emma looked at him with identical expressions of shock. He was shocked too. What was wrong with his mouth today? It's just a story, he justified, convincing no one, especially not himself. One, a short one. Emma opened a smile that could light up all of Asheville. Mr. Carrot says thank you. And before Marcus could reconsider all his life choices, a small hand grabbed his fingers and pulled him toward the hallway. He looked back at Clara. She was standing in the kitchen, plates in hand, with an expression he couldn't read. But there was something there, something that looked like gratitude mixed with caution. "Mr. Ellington," she called, when he was almost in the hallway. "Marcus," he corrected, not knowing why. "Just Marcus." Clara nodded slowly. "Marcus, thank you, for not calling the police." He should have called. Every fiber of his crisis management training said he should have called. But as Emma chattered about Mr. Carrot's favorite story and Liam shouted from the bedroom that, technically, dragons can't read, Marcus realized that, for the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about spreadsheets, meetings, or profit reports. He was thinking about how a 4-year-old held his hand as if he were the most trustworthy person in the world. It was terrifying, and somehow it was also the best feeling he had experienced in years. The story lasted 43 minutes, involved 7 requests for read that part again, and a philosophical discussion with Liam about whether dragons were thermally viable. When the children finally fell asleep, Marcus stumbled out of the room. Clara was waiting in the hallway. "You survived," she said, almost smiling. "Barely." They stood there in the dark hallway, at a distance that seemed both too far and too dangerous. "One night," Clara repeated, more to herself than to him. "One night," Marcus confirmed. But as he walked to the sofa where he would sleep next to the plastic brachiosaurus, Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling that one night would never be enough. And that maybe, just maybe, he didn't want it to be. What he didn't know was that the next morning, a sheriff's car would park in front of the cabin, and Deputy Hank Wheeler was about to turn everything into an even bigger chaos. The sheriff's car parked at 7:12 in the morning, with a stop that kicked up enough dust to cover 3 states. Marcus was in the middle of an epic battle with his grandfather's old coffee maker when he heard the engine. Through the window, he saw a burly man getting out of the car with the energy of someone who had just won the lottery and needed to tell everyone. The man wore a uniform that seemed 2 sizes too small and a mustache that looked like it had been drawn by a 5-year-old. "Good morning, cabin dweller," he shouted, already climbing the porch steps. "Deputy Hank Wheeler, Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, here to investigate suspicious activity." Marcus opened the door before the man broke it down. Suspicious activity? Lights on at night, smoke from the chimney, movement of people. Hank counted on his fingers as if listing evidence of an international crime. This cabin was empty for 8 years. 8, and suddenly there's life here? That's suspicious, my friend. Very suspicious. "I'm the owner." Hank blinked. "The owner?" "Marcus Ellington, Harold Ellington's grandson. The cabin belongs to my family." "Oh," Hank's face lit up. "Harold's grandson. I knew your grandfather. Great man. We played poker every Thursday. He cheated, but we let him because he brought apple pie." Marcus didn't know what to do with this information. "Right? Well, as you can see, there's nothing suspicious here. Just me on vacation in my own house." "Just you?" That's when Clara appeared in the kitchen doorway, in an apron, with a spatula in her hand and a spot of pancake batter on her chin. "Marcus, the pancakes are ready. The children are already at the table and—" She stopped when she saw the visitor. "Oh." Hank looked at Clara, looked at Marcus, looked at the spatula. His mustache trembled. "Just you, huh? This isn't what it looks like," Marcus began. "Pancakes," Hank exclaimed, ignoring him completely. "Nothing says happy family like pancakes on a Saturday morning. And children, you have children. They're not my children." "Of course they're not." Wink, wink. "I'm not winking." "But I am." Hank actually winked, twice. It was disturbing. Liam appeared behind Clara, still in dinosaur pajamas. "Mom, is the dragon going to eat with us or not?" Hank leaned forward. "Dragon? It's a long story," Marcus and Clara said at the same time. Hank's mustache reached worrying vibration levels. "You talk at the same time. That's a couple thing. My wife and I do that all the time." He pulled out a notepad from his pocket. "I need to write this down for the report." "What report?" "The community welfare report. Part of my civic duty is to keep the town informed about new residents." Clara took a step forward. "Deputy Wheeler, I need to explain." Hank, please. Deputy Wheeler is too formal for family." "We're not family," Marcus interrupted. "Not yet." Hank pointed his pen at him. "But I'm sensing something here. An energy. My wife says I have a gift for detecting romance. She calls it Cupid radar." "Your wife is wrong. She says that too. Hank put away the notepad. Well, I won't interrupt the family breakfast. Just one more little question. When's the gender reveal party? The silence that followed could have frozen the sun. What? Clara asked, her voice going up 3 octaves. The gender reveal party, to find out if it's a boy or a girl. Hank looked at her belly, which was completely flat. Or is it too early? Sorry, I get ahead of myself sometimes. I'm not pregnant. Oh. Pause. Then why is he here? Because it's his house. Ah, yes, of course. Hank nodded wisely. His house. I get it. Total discretion. My lips are sealed. He walked back to the car, stopped halfway, and turned around. Just to confirm. Pancakes, children, romantic cabin in the mountains, the 2 of you alone. And it's nothing? Nothing. Marcus practically shouted. Perfect. I'll write it down as in denial. I have a special category for that. He got in the car. Welcome to Asheville. Anything you need, call the station. Everyone's going to know about you anyway, so you can ask anyone on the street. The car took off, leaving a cloud of dust and 2 shocked people on the porch. Marcus and Clara stood in silence for a long moment. Did that just happen? He asked. I think so. How long do you think before the whole town knows? Clara looked at the clock on the wall, considering how fast he drove. 4 minutes. Maybe 3 if he uses the car radio. Marcus groaned and rubbed his face. I came here for peace, privacy, anonymity. And you found pancakes and gossip. Clara gave a small smile. Welcome to the countryside. There was something in that smile that made Marcus stop complaining. She was laughing at him, but not in a cruel way. It was the kind of laugh that invited you to laugh along. You think this is funny, he accused. A little. Your reputation just got destroyed. Clara's smile wavered. My reputation wasn't much to begin with. Single mother, no steady job, living where I shouldn't. People talk anyway. She shrugged, but there was weight in that gesture. At least now they'll have something interesting to say. Marcus observed her. Beneath the bravado, beneath the jokes and the defensive posture, there were layers of pain she hid well. Very well. Clara? The pancakes are going to get cold, she cut in, turning inside. And Liam gets unbearable when he eats cold pancakes. More unbearable than normal, I mean. She disappeared into the kitchen. Marcus stood on the porch, looking at the road where the car had vanished. Somewhere down there, an entire town was discovering that he existed. That Clara existed. That they were together. Together. The word echoed strangely in his head. He had spent his life building walls. Walls between him and colleagues, him and partners, him and anyone who got too close. It was safer that way. More efficient. But here in the small town where nobody cared about efficiency, where a deputy could destroy your privacy in 3 minutes and a single mother could invade your house and your breakfast, the walls seemed useless. Mr. Dragon, Emma's voice came from inside. Your pancake has a bare face. Come see. Marcus took a deep breath. 1 night, he had said. 1 night, and that's it. But as he walked into the kitchen and saw Emma proudly pointing at a pancake that looked more like a traffic accident than a bear, as Liam explained that, technically, bears are omnivores and would probably eat pancakes if they had access, as Clara poured coffee with that half-smile he was starting to recognize. Marcus realized that 1 night had already turned into 1 morning, and he had no idea how to turn back. What he also didn't know was that, at that exact moment, Hank Wheeler was on the car radio, and the first call he made wasn't to the station. It was to Mildred Patterson, the owner of the Central Diner, known as the unofficial news center of Asheville. And Mildred was already making a list of questions for the next time she saw the mysterious mountain couple. The pancake breakfast had barely ended when the cabin's landline rang for the first time in 8 years. Marcus stared at the dusty device on the wall as if it were a weapon. It rang again and again. Clara raised an eyebrow, amused, as she dried the dishes. Aren't you going to answer? I didn't even know that line still worked. Clearly, Asheville knew. He answered on the 5th ring. Hello? Mr. Ellington. A shrill female voice practically burst his eardrums. This is Mildred Patterson from the Central Diner. Hank told me everything. Everything. I just wanted to say we're so happy you found love in the mountains. When are you coming down to town? I need to meet this young lady and the children. Hank said they're adorable. Marcus pulled the phone away from his ear. Mrs. Patterson, I'm not. Mildred, dear. Call me Mildred. After all, we're practically family now. The whole town is talking. Harold's single grandson finally found someone. Your grandfather would be so proud. We're not together. That's what everyone says in the beginning. She laughed. Anyway, I just called to let you know the apple pie will be ready at 3. Bring the children. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone as if it had just bitten him. Let me guess, Clara said, unable to hide her smile. The gossip spread further than we expected. A lady I've never seen in my life just invited me to eat pie and called me dear. Welcome to small-town life. Tomorrow she'll know your blood type. The phone rang again. Marcus groaned. There were 7 calls that morning. 7. The auto shop owner wanted to know if they needed a bigger car for the family. The librarian asked if the children had library cards yet. And a man named Earl offered his services as a wedding officiant. In case you need it, no rush, but no stalling either. At the end of the 7th call, Marcus disconnected the phone from the wall. Done, he said, throwing himself on the sofa next to the Brachiosaurus. Peace. You know they're going to start showing up in person now, right? Marcus stared at her, horrified. They would do that? You really don't know small towns. He needed air, space, anything that didn't involve ringing phones or curious neighbors. I'm going for a walk, he announced, getting up. Running away? Strategically repositioning myself. Clara rolled her eyes, but there was something warm in that gesture. Marcus went out the back door and breathed in the fresh mountain air. Silence. Finally. That's when he saw her car. Clara's old sedan was parked under a tree with the hood slightly open. He remembered her commenting to Liam the day before, thinking Marcus wasn't listening, that the engine was making a worrying noise. He was just going to take a look. A quick look. 5 minutes. 40 minutes later, his hands were covered in grease. He had changed a worn belt, adjusted the spark plugs, and discovered that the oil filter was practically an archaeological relic. What are you doing? Marcus hit his head on the chassis. Anne. He rolled out and saw Clara standing there, arms crossed. I was checking. Checking? The hood was open. It seemed irresponsible to ignore it. The hood was open because I opened it yesterday to look and forgot to close it. Oh, pause. Well, now it's fixed. Clara was silent, studying him with those eyes that saw too much. Why? Why what? Why are you doing this? You could have called a mechanic. You could have ignored it. But you're here, covered in grease, fixing the car of a stranger who invaded your house. Marcus stood up, wiping his hands on his pants and only managing to spread the dirt. You have 2 children, he said, the words coming out before he could filter them. And a car that barely works, in the middle of the mountains. If something happened... He stopped, not knowing how to finish. You're strange, Marcus Ellington. Thank you? It wasn't a compliment. It didn't sound like an insult either. I'm still deciding. Before he could respond, something collided with his legs. Emma was hugging him with all the strength of her 4 years, her face pressed against his grease-covered pants. Mr. Marcus, you fixed Mommy's car. How did you? I was being discreet. Liam saw from the window. He said you looked like a dragon mechanic. Marcus tried to pull away. His feet didn't cooperate. He took a step back, tripped on a root, balanced himself on the bumper, and somehow got even more trapped in the hug. Emma, I'm dirty. Your clothes are going to... I don't care. Mommy said the car was almost stopping working. You saved it. I didn't save it. I just... You're a hero. Marcus looked at Clara, desperate. She was biting her lip, trying not to laugh. Help, he mouthed. You got yourself into this, she replied soundlessly. Liam appeared on the porch holding a sheet of paper. Mr. Marcus, I made something for you. If it's a quiz about black holes, I haven't studied yet. It's not a quiz. Liam came down the steps and held out the paper. It's a drawing. Marcus finally freed himself from Emma and took the sheet, and his heart stopped. 4 stick figures in front of a house, a woman with brown hair, a boy with a sword, a girl holding a rabbit, and a very tall man in a suit with an expression that Liam had tried to make serious but looked constipated. Underneath, in crooked letters, our family. Marcus stared for so long that Liam got nervous. Don't you like it? I like it. You look strange. It's my normal face. Your normal face is strange. Marcus couldn't take his eyes off the words. Our family. 2 words that had no right to affect him like this. He thought about his own childhood. Empty mansions, parents traveling, Christmases with paid employees to be nice. Nobody had ever drawn him in a family. Nobody had ever thought to include him in one. Marcus? Clara's voice was soft. Are you okay? He met her eyes, concerned, seeing through him. I am. I just need to keep this somewhere safe. He folded the paper with reverent care and put it in his shirt pocket. Liam smiled. I knew you'd like it. Dragons like treasures. Marcus swallowed the lump in his throat. Yeah, I guess they do. That afternoon, while Clara prepared lunch and the children played in the yard, she appeared on the porch where Marcus was sitting, still holding the drawing. She didn't say anything, just sat down next to him and held out a cup of coffee. He drank and stopped. It was perfect. Strong, no sugar, slightly bitter. How did you? You complain about everything, she said simply, but you didn't complain about yesterday's coffee, so I paid attention. Nobody ever paid attention to him that way, to the Marcus who liked bitter coffee, to the Marcus who fixed cars, to the Marcus who kept children's drawings like treasures. He opened his mouth to say thank you. That's when they heard the engine. A luxury car was coming up the dirt road, kicking up dust, completely out of place in that rural landscape. Marcus recognized the vehicle before he even saw the license plate, and his stomach sank. Who is it? Clara asked, noticing the change in his face. Marcus stood up slowly, the drawing still in his pocket, the coffee forgotten. My past, he said, coming to collect. The car stopped, the door opened, and Sloane Whitford stepped out, impeccable as always, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sloane Whitford wore high heels on a dirt road, and somehow made it seem like the road was the one that was wrong. She walked to the porch with the grace of a runway model, each step calculated, her immaculate white blazer contrasting with the dust around her. Her eyes swept over the cabin, Clara, the children playing in the yard, and returned to Marcus with an expression that mixed disappointment and cruel amusement. Marcus, darling. Her voice was poisoned honey. When they said you had fled to the mountains, I imagined a luxury resort, not this. Marcus came down the porch steps, instinctively positioning himself between Sloane and Clara. Sloane, what are you doing here? Saving you from yourself, apparently. She raised a leather briefcase. I brought the merger contracts. They need your signature by Friday. I said I needed time. You said that 2 weeks ago. The board is getting impatient. Her eyes slid to Clara again. And now I understand the reason for the delay. Clara stood up from the chair, smoothing her flour-stained apron. She had been making cookies before the interruption. Hi, Clara Dawson. She extended her hand. Sloane looked at the extended hand as if it were a particularly unpleasant insect. After an awkward pause, she shook it with her fingertips. Sloane Whitford, Marcus's partner, ex-fiancé too, but that was a long time ago. Her smile was sharp as a razor. And you are? The cabin invader, apparently. Marcus choked. Sloane blinked, clearly not expecting that answer. Pardon? Long story. Clara smiled sweetly. It involves an eviction, a gossipy deputy, and a plastic dinosaur. Want a cookie? I just made some. I don't eat carbs after 11. How sad for you. They're really good. Marcus watched the exchange with a mixture of horror and fascination. It was like watching two cats studying each other before a fight. Sloane recovered her composure quickly. Well, Clara, it's lovely to meet Marcus's housekeeper. He's always needed someone to take care of practical things. Never been very good with day-to-day stuff. Oh, I'm not a housekeeper. No? Sloane raised a perfectly drawn eyebrow. Then what exactly are you? Clara seemed to consider the question. Technically, a temporary occupant who makes very good coffee and has 2 children who think Marcus is a dragon, not in the negative sense, in the powerful mythical creature sense. It's a compliment, I think. Marcus wanted to disappear or laugh, possibly both. How charming. Sloane pronounced the word as if it were synonymous with pathetic. Marcus, can we talk in private? Business matters. Whatever you have to say can be said here. Are you sure? She cast another look at Clara. I don't want to bore your friend with corporate details. Go ahead. I love corporate details. Clara sat down again. They're my second favorite subject, right after dinosaurs and before rabbits with bladder problems. Marcus had to fake a cough to hide his laughter. Sloane, for the first time since she arrived, looked genuinely flustered. Right. She opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick document. Marcus, the merger with TechVance is at risk. You disappeared without warning. You don't answer emails. You don't take calls. The investors are nervous. They're always nervous. It's the natural state of investors. This is different. They're questioning your leadership ability. Some are suggesting that maybe you need a more permanent break. The air grew heavy. Are you threatening me, Sloane? I'm informing you, as your partner and as someone who cares about you. She moved closer, lowering her voice but not enough for Clara not to hear. Look around you, Marcus. This isn't you. Old cabins, children running around, women making cookies. You built an empire. Are you going to throw it all away because of a premature midlife crisis? I'm 34 years old, and you're acting like you're 60 and retired. Sloane placed the contract on the porch table. Sign this. Go back to Atlanta. Take back your life before you lose everything you built. Marcus looked at the contract. Pages and pages of clauses, obligations, commitments, his entire life summed up on letterhead. Can I ask a question? Clara's voice cut through the silence. Sloane turned to her with barely disguised impatience. Of course, dear. What is it? How long did you drive to get here? 6 hours. Why? And at no point during those 6 hours did you think to call first? Or send a message? Maybe a carrier pigeon? Sloane narrowed her eyes. Marcus wasn't responding. So you decided to show up unannounced on private property to pressure someone who clearly wanted distance? Clara tilted her head. Interesting business strategy. Very intense. I don't need etiquette lessons from someone who breaks into other people's houses. Fair. But at least I admit I broke in. You're pretending this is a social visit. Marcus watched Clara face off with Sloane with that unshakable calm, responding to the jabs with precise irony, and felt something shift in his chest. Sloane was everything he knew. Success, power, ambition. They had been engaged because it made sense on paper. Two high-level executives building an empire together. But Clara was chaos. Cookies and children and absurd rules and perfect coffee. Nothing about her made sense on paper. And yet, Marcus, Sloane's voice was harder now. I need an answer. He looked at the contract, at Sloane, at Clara, who had looked away and was staring at the mountains with an expression he couldn't decipher. I need more time. How much time? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Sloane took a deep breath, visibly controlling her frustration. You have until Friday. After that, the board will make decisions without you. She put away the briefcase. I hope you know what you're doing, Marcus. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're throwing your life away for... Another look at Clara. For nothing. She walked back to the car without saying goodbye. The engine purred. The dust rose, and then she was gone. The silence that remained was thick enough to cut. She seems nice, Clara said finally. Marcus let out a humorless laugh. She's complicated. You were engaged. It wasn't a question. 3 years ago. It didn't work out. Clearly she didn't get the memo. Marcus turned to Clara. She was still looking at the mountains, but there was something in her face now. Something closed off, distant. Clara, you should sign the contract. What? She finally looked at him. That's your life, Marcus. Your company, your investors, your future. She shrugged, but the gesture was heavy. We're just a pause, an accident along the way. You can't throw everything away because of cookies and children's drawings. What if I want to? The words came out before he could stop them. Clara looked at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes, hope, perhaps, or fear, or both mixed together. You don't want to? She said softly. You're just confused, tired. When the dust settles, you'll realize I was right. She went into the cabin before he could respond. Marcus stood on the porch, alone, looking at the contract Sloane had left. His old life on one side, something new and terrifying on the other. And him, in the middle, not knowing where to go. What he didn't see was Clara, on the other side of the window, wiping away a silent tear before the children could notice. The contract was still on the porch table 3 days later, accumulating dew and guilt. Marcus woke up that morning with a weight in his chest he couldn't explain. Since Sloane's visit, Clara had gone back to treating him with distant politeness. Still made perfect coffee, still took care of the house, but the smiles were rarer and the conversations shorter. He hated it. You need to get out of this cabin, Clara said at breakfast without looking at him. You're putting down roots on the sofa. I'm fine. You watched the same documentary about penguins 3 times yesterday. It was informative. It was sad. The penguins were sad. You were sadder than the penguins. Liam looked up from his cereal. Penguins don't get sad. They're biologically adapted to extreme environments. The melancholic appearance is human anthropomorphization. Marcus and Clara stared at him. Where did you learn the word anthropomorphization? Marcus asked. In a documentary about penguins. Clara stood up abruptly. Get up. We're going for a walk. What? Walk. In the mountains, with your legs, one in front of the other. She was already grabbing a backpack. The children are coming with us. You need air and vitamin D before you turn into an actual sad penguin. I don't want to. I didn't ask if you want to. It's one of my rules. Remember the rules? Marcus remembered, unfortunately. An hour later, they were on a trail Marcus didn't know existed, surrounded by trees so tall they seemed to hold up the sky. Emma walked ahead, chatting animatedly with Mr. Carrot about the different shapes of the clouds. Liam had brought a notebook and stopped every 3 meters to catalog insects. You know these trails well, Marcus observed, walking beside Clara. I spent many summers here as a child. My grandmother lived in Asheville. She stepped over a root with the naturalness of someone who knew every stone. This place was my refuge. When life got too hard, I'd climb the mountain and pretend the rest of the world didn't exist. Did it work? Sometimes. She glanced at him sideways. And you? What was your refuge? Marcus thought for a moment. Work, that's not refuge. That's escape. What's the difference? Refuge, you come back renewed. Escape, you come back more tired than when you left. He had no answer for that. They walked in silence for a few minutes. The only sound was the singing of birds, footsteps on dry leaves, and Emma explaining to the stuffed rabbit that cloud looked like an elephant eating ice cream. Can I ask you something? Clara said finally. Depends. Why did you come here? Really, not the official version. Marcus sighed. The official version is that I needed a vacation. And the real version? He was silent for so long that Clara thought he wasn't going to answer. I had a panic attack, he said finally, the words coming out as if they had physical weight. In the middle of a board meeting, 30 executives looking at me while I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but feel like I was suffocating. Clara stopped walking. Marcus, I built that company from scratch. 10 years of my life, and suddenly I was at the top of everything I'd always wanted, surrounded by everything I'd always worked to have, and... He swallowed hard, and I felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, just tiredness. A tiredness so deep it felt like it was in my bones. They had stopped in a small clearing, where sunlight filtered through the trees in golden beams. So you ran away, Clara said without judgment. I needed to find out if there was still anything beyond work. Some part of me that wasn't defined by contracts and mergers and quarterly reports. And did you find it? Marcus looked at her, at the brown eyes that seemed to see through all his defenses. I'm starting to find out. The air between them changed, became denser, more charged. Clara looked away first. We should keep going. The children are going to... Her foot found a hidden root. Marcus caught her by instinct, one hand on her arm, the other on her waist. She grabbed onto his shoulders to keep from falling, and suddenly they were very close. Too close. He could see every freckle on her nose. He could feel her quickened breathing. He could see the exact moment when her eyes dropped to his lips. Clara, he whispered. Marcus, she responded, her voice hoarse. He leaned in. She didn't pull back. The entire world shrank until there was only that tiny space between them, that centimeter of possibility. That moment suspended in time that promised to change everything. Mr. Marcus, Mrs. Mommy, look what I found. Marcus and Clara separated so fast that he almost tripped on the same root that had knocked her down. Liam came running down the trail, holding something that sparkled under the sun. It's a quartz rock with mineral inclusions. He was breathless with excitement. Did you know that quartz can be over 1,000 years old? 1,000? That's older than you, Mr. Marcus. Thanks for the information, Liam. You're welcome. He raised the rock like a trophy. I'm going to call her Gertrude. And he ran back the way he came. Emma, come see Gertrude. The silence that remained was deafening. Marcus looked at Clara. She had red cheeks, her eyes fixed on the trees, pretending nothing had happened. So, he tried. So, she repeated. More silence. That was nothing, Clara cut in quickly. You tripped. I fell. Gravity. Basic physics. I didn't trip. You tripped. Details. Clara, we should go back. She was already walking. The children. Lunch. Things to do. Lots of things. Marcus followed her, frustrated and confused and still feeling the ghost of the almost kiss on his lips. The rest of the walk was silent. Not the comfortable silence from before, but a silence loaded with unspoken words and interrupted possibilities. When they got back to the cabin, Emma ran to show her collection of special leaves, and Liam began a monologue about Gertrude's chemical composition. Clara disappeared into the kitchen. Marcus stood on the porch, looking at the mountains, Sloane's contract still on the table beside him. He had come here looking for silence. He had found chaos. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, between perfect coffee and family drawings and almost kisses, interrupted by children excited about rocks, Marcus realized a frightening truth. He no longer knew who he was, but for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. What he didn't know was that Sloane Whitford hadn't given up. And the call she made that night to Clara would change everything. The phone rang at 9 at night, and Clara answered thinking it was a wrong number. Clara Dawson? The voice on the other end was cold as ice in a champagne glass. This is Sloane Whitford. We need to talk. In person. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock at the town diner. Alone. The line went dead before Clara could respond. The next morning, Marcus left early to handle the car paperwork in town. The registration needed updating, something about his grandfather's documents that were never transferred. Clara said she'd stay with the children. She didn't mention the call. She didn't mention that, as soon as his car disappeared down the road, she left Liam and Emma with the nearest neighbor and drove to the Central Diner in Asheville. Sloane was already there, impeccable as always, sitting at a corner table as if the entire place belonged to her. On the table, next to an untouched cup of tea, there was a check. A check with 6 zeros and an insult embedded in each one of them. Clara sat down slowly, staring at the numbers while Sloane smiled as if she were offering a generous gift. "It's more than fair," Sloane said, crossing her legs. "Enough for you to start over anywhere. Decent apartment, good school for the children, maybe even a savings account." Clara looked at the check, then at Sloane. "You're paying me to leave. I'm offering an opportunity." Sloane's smile didn't waver. "You're smart, Clara. You know this isn't real." Marcus is confused. "Tired. You're a convenient distraction." "A distraction. Don't take it personally. Men like Marcus have these phases. They run to the countryside, play at simple life, pretend they don't need the world they built." Sloane leaned in. "But they always come back. And when Marcus comes back, you'll just be a funny story at business dinners." Clara felt each word like a cut. "He's not like that. Dear, I was engaged to him for 2 years. I know Marcus better than he knows himself." Sloane pushed the check forward. "Take the money. Give your children a better life. Let Marcus go back to where he belongs." Clara looked out the window. Across the street, Mildred Patterson was pretending to sweep the sidewalk while clearly trying to read lips. "How long?" Clara asked. "Pardon? How long did it take him to get over you?" Sloane blinked. "That's not. 2 years engaged. You broke up 3 years ago." Clara stared at her. "If you know Marcus so well, you must know. Or had he already moved on before you broke up?" Sloane's smile cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Maybe not, but I know one thing. I don't need your money to make my decisions." She tore the check in half, then in 4, then in 8. The pieces fell on the table like sad confetti. Sloane stood up, her composure recovered. "You're going to regret this." "Probably, but I'll regret my own choices, not yours." Clara walked out of the diner with her head held high. But in the car, her hands were shaking. Sloane was right about one thing. This wasn't real. Marcus had a whole life waiting, and Clara had what? 2 children, no job, no house. She was a pause, an accident. When she got to the cabin, she packed in silence. 2 backpacks and a rolling suitcase with a broken zipper. She was carrying the first backpack when the sheriff's car parked at the entrance. "Clara," Hank got out with his usual smile. "Going shopping? I can give you a ride. Mildred's peach pie is divine." "I'm not going shopping, Hank." "Family trip?" He looked at the bags. "Every couple needs a romantic getaway. I'm leaving, like not coming back." His smile crumbled. "But what about Marcus, the children, Mr. Carrot?" "We're all going, except Marcus." Hank took off his hat. "That doesn't seem right. You two seemed right together, like pie and ice cream." "Sometimes things seem right, but they're not." Hank stood there, clearly not knowing what to do. "Want me to call someone? Let Marcus know?" "No." Clara took a deep breath. "Please, Hank, just let me go." He looked at her for a long moment, his mustache drooping with sadness. "All right, but if you change your mind," he pointed to the car. "You know where to find me." Hank got in the car slowly, casting one last look at her before starting up. The car went down the dirt road, and Clara was alone. She went back to get the rest of the things. That's when she saw the notebook. It had fallen from the backpack, pages exposed, messy handwriting visible. But it wasn't the only notebook on the floor. Marcus was at the door, holding her old notebook, the one with the blue cover. "Where did you find that?" Her voice came out strangled. "Under the sofa." His eyes were red. "Clara, what is this?" He had read it, all the fears, all the goals. The last entry, "I don't deserve someone like him, but for a moment it was nice to pretend." "You were leaving," Marcus said. "It's best for everyone." "For who?" "Because it's not for me." "Sloane was here. She said I'm a distraction." "And you believed her?" "I believed what I already knew." Marcus crossed the room. "Then let me tell you what I know. For the first time in years, I want to get out of bed. Your son calls me a dragon. Your daughter gives me cookies. You make me want to be better." "Marcus, if you leave, you'll take the only thing that made me feel alive again." "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too. But maybe we can be scared together." A tear escaped. Emma appeared at the door, holding Mr. Carrot. "Mommy? Why are the bags in the car?" Clara looked at her daughter, at Marcus. "Because." But before she could finish, the sky darkened, and the first thunder of the biggest storm in 20 years shook the mountains. The thunder shook the cabin as if the mountains were collapsing. Clara instinctively pulled Emma close while the lights flickered once, twice, 3 times, and then died. Darkness swallowed everything, cut only by lightning that turned the windows into white explosions. "Mommy," Emma whispered, clinging to Mr. Carrot. "It's very loud." "I know, sweetheart. It'll pass." Marcus was already lighting candles, moving through the cabin with an efficiency Clara didn't expect. Liam appeared in the hallway, holding Gertrude, the quartz rock, like a protective amulet. "Technically," he said, his voice trembling just a little, "thunder is just sound waves caused by the rapid expansion of air heated by lightning. There's no rational reason to be afraid." "Are you scared?" Marcus asked. "No. I'm making scientific observations." Pause. "Can I make scientific observations in your room?" Nobody slept that night. The storm roared outside like a wounded animal. Trees groaned under the wind. The rain beat against the windows so hard it seemed to want to come in. Clara, Marcus, and the children stayed in the living room, gathered around the candles, waiting. Around 3 in the morning, Emma started to shake. At first, Clara thought it was fear. The girl was curled up on the sofa, hugging the stuffed rabbit, her eyes closed. "Emma?" Clara touched her forehead, and froze. "Marcus?" The urgency in her voice made him turn immediately. "What is it? She's burning up." Marcus crossed the room in 2 steps and touched Emma's forehead. The heat was alarming, even through her skin. "How much?" Clara was already looking for the thermometer in the backpack she hadn't unpacked. 103.1. Her voice trembled. "No, wait. 103.6. Does she have a history of high fever?" "Sometimes, when she was a baby, but never like this." Clara picked Emma up. The girl was limp, her eyes glazed. "Emma, sweetheart, can you hear me?" "Mommy?" The voice was a thread. "Mr. Carrot is cold." Clara looked at Marcus. The fear in her eyes was something he would never forget. "Hospital," he said. "It wasn't a question. The road. I'll drive." "Marcus, the world is falling apart out there." "I will. Drive." 5 minutes later, they were in Marcus's car. Clara in the back seat with Emma in her lap, the girl wrapped in blankets. Liam was beside them, holding his sister's hand with a seriousness that broke the heart. "Everything's going to be okay," he said to Emma, but he seemed to be trying to convince himself. Statistically, most childhood fevers are viral and self-limiting. "Thank you, Liam," Clara whispered. "You're welcome." "I researched it. When Mr. Carrot had an imaginary fever last month, I was preparing myself." Marcus started the car and turned on the headlights. The rain was a solid wall of water. The nearest hospital is 40 minutes away in normal conditions. And in these conditions? He didn't answer. Just put it in gear and started down the dirt road that was now a river of mud. The first 10 minutes were silent, except for the rain hammering the car roof and Emma's quick breathing. Marcus drove with his hands gripping the wheel, his eyes fixed on the few meters of visibility the headlights offered. "She's getting hotter," Clara said from the back seat. "How much?" "I don't know. The thermometer keeps slipping. She's sweating a lot." 15 minutes to the main road. "Marcus?" "I know. I'm going as fast as I can." A sharp curve. The car skidded. Clara held Emma tight while Marcus corrected the direction, his heart in his throat. "Sorry," he said. "Don't stop. No matter what happens, don't stop." They reached the main road and found a barrier. 2 police cars blocked access. red and blue lights spinning in the darkness. A police officer in a raincape signaled for them to stop. Marcus rolled down the window. The rain invaded the car immediately. Road closed, the officer shouted over the noise of the storm. Tree fell 2 miles ahead, detour through Route 9. I have a sick child, high fever. I need to get to the hospital. The officer looked at the back seat, at Clara holding Emma, at the girl's pale face. Route 9, 3 miles back, turn left. It'll add 20 minutes, but it's the only way. He hesitated. Good luck. Marcus was already backing up before the officer finished speaking. 20 minutes, Clara said, her voice breaking. Marcus, she can't wait 20 minutes. She'll wait. He met her eyes in the rearview mirror. I promise. Route 9 was worse. Narrower, more winding, darker. Marcus drove as if his life depended on it, because in a way, it did. Emma started mumbling nonsense. Mommy, the dragons are flying. I know, sweetheart. They're good dragons. They're protecting us. Mr. Carrot wants water. I'll give him water later. Rest now. Liam held his sister's hand in silence, tears running down his face that he didn't try to hide. How much longer? Clara asked. 10 minutes. She stopped sweating. Is that bad? Marcus didn't answer. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The longest 10 minutes of all their lives. When the hospital lights appeared through the rain, Clara let out a sob she had been holding since they left the cabin. Marcus stopped at the emergency entrance and got out of the car running. He opened the back door, took Emma from Clara's arms, and went through the automatic doors shouting for help. Nurses appeared immediately. A gurney. Quick questions. Age, weight, how long with fever, any allergies. Clara answered on autopilot, holding Emma's hand until the moment she couldn't anymore. Double doors closing between her and her daughter. Ma'am, you need to wait here. She's my daughter. I know, the doctors will take care of her. You need to wait. Clara stood in the hallway, soaked, shaking, looking at the closed doors. That's when she felt Marcus's hand in hers. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. I can't lose her, she whispered. Marcus, I can't. You won't. He squeezed her hand. She's strong, just like her mother. Liam appeared beside them, holding Mr. Carrot. Emma asked me to take care of him while she was busy, he said, his voice small. I promised I would. Clara knelt down and hugged her son with all the strength she had. You're the best brother in the world. I know, he said, but his voice failed. She's gonna be okay, right, Mom? Clara looked at Marcus, at the closed doors, at her son who was trying to be strong. She will, she said. She has to be. The following hours were a blur of waiting, cold coffee, and heavy silence. Marcus didn't let go of Clara's hand for even a second, and when the doctor finally appeared at 6 in the morning, with the sun rising through the hospital windows, Clara held her breath. His face revealed nothing. The doctor smiled, and Clara felt her legs give way. She's going to be fine, he said, holding her by the arm before she fell. Viral infection with high fever, but she responded well to the medications. She's awake and asking for a Mr. Carrot? Clara let out a laugh that was half a sob. It's her stuffed rabbit. Ah, the doctor looked relieved. Well, she can have visitors. One at a time, preferably. Clara looked at Marcus. He nodded. Go. I'll stay with Liam. She went through the double doors with her heart still racing, following the nurse to a small room where Emma was lying down, pale but alert, surrounded by wires and monitors. Mommy, the voice was weak, but the smile was huge. I flew with the dragons. Clara sat on the edge of the bed and took her daughter's hand. You did? Yes. They were blue and had shiny wings. And Mr. Marcus was there. He was the king of the dragons. The king, no less. He had a crown of fire, but fire that doesn't burn. Gentle fire. Clara kissed Emma's forehead, finally warm, no longer burning. You gave me the biggest scare of my life. Sorry, Mommy. Emma frowned. Where's Mr. Carrot? Liam is taking care of him. Liam? Emma's eyes widened. But Liam doesn't know that Mr. Carrot is afraid of hospitals. I'm sure he's explaining everything scientifically to keep Mr. Carrot calm. Emma considered this. Okay, Mr. Carrot likes science. An hour later, Emma had fallen asleep again. This time a peaceful, natural sleep without fever. Clara was sitting in the armchair next to the bed, holding her daughter's hand when the door opened. Marcus came in slowly, carrying 2 cups of machine coffee. Liam is in the waiting room, drawing a diagram of the immune system to show Emma when she wakes up, he said softly. Apparently, she needs to understand how her body fought the invaders. Clara smiled, exhausted. He's going to do a complete presentation, isn't he? With charts, and possibly a quiz at the end. He held out one of the cups to her. Clara accepted and drank without thinking. "This is terrible," she said. "I know. Hospital coffee is a legalized form of torture." "Then why did you bring it?" "Because you haven't eaten anything in 12 hours, and if I brought real food you would refuse." She looked at him for a long moment. "You know me too well for someone who's known me for 2 weeks. Feels like longer, doesn't it?" It did. It felt like a lifetime. Marcus pulled up a chair and sat beside her, the two of them watching Emma sleep. "I've never been so scared in my life," he said after a long silence. "When you said she was burning with fever, I felt like the ground had disappeared. She's not your daughter. I know." He turned to face her. "But at some point in the last 2 weeks she became my responsibility. Liam too." Pause. "And you." Clara felt her heart race. "Marcus, let me finish. Please." She nodded. "I spent 10 years building a company, 10 years thinking that success meant numbers, contracts, profits, and I achieved all of that. Every goal I set, I reached." He looked at his own hands, and when I finally got to the top, I realized I had nobody to share it with. Nobody who cared about Marcus, not about the executive. Nobody who made coffee the way I like it, just because they paid attention. "Marcus, you invaded my cabin." He laughed, a tired but genuine sound. "Literally invaded, with 2 children and a stuffed rabbit with bladder problems. And in 2 weeks, you turned my life upside down in a way I didn't even know was possible." Clara felt the tears burning. "I have nothing to offer you. No job, no house, no stability. You can have anyone in the world. Why? Because nobody ever saw me." He held her face with both hands. "Nobody ever looked past the suit and the title and saw the guy who likes bitter coffee and doesn't know how to tie shoes and reads dragon stories to children he just met." "You know how to tie shoes." "Not very well, apparently. Liam corrected me 3 times. Clara laughed through the tears. "He corrects everyone." "I know, and I want to be corrected by him for the rest of my life." The air between them grew dense. "You're serious," Clara whispered. "More serious than I've ever been about anything. I'm scared." "Me too." "What if it doesn't work out? What if it does?" She had no answer for that. Marcus leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. She didn't want to. His lips met hers in a soft, hesitant kiss, full of silent promises. Machines beeped around them. The fluorescent light hummed. Emma slept a few feet away. It was the most imperfect and most perfect moment of Clara's life. When they separated, both were smiling like teenagers. We should. Probably." Before they could say anything else, the room door burst open. Hank Wheeler entered like a uniformed hurricane, completely soaked, his mustache dripping water. "I came as fast as I could," he gasped. "I got the news and drove in the rain and almost crashed twice and—" He stopped, looking around. "Wait, where is everyone?" "Hank?" Marcus stood up. "How did you know we were here?" "Mildred called, said she heard from someone who heard from someone that you were at the hospital." He looked at Clara, then at Marcus, then at Emma sleeping. "But isn't it the wedding?" "What?" "The wedding," Mildred said. "You were going to get married at the hospital because the girl was sick and you wanted to do it before." He stopped. "Wait, nobody's getting married?" "No, Hank. Emma was sick. We brought her to the emergency room." Hank processed this information for a long moment. "So I drove 40 minutes in the storm of the century thinking I was going to miss the wedding, and there was no wedding at all?" "Correct." "And the girl is okay?" "She is. And you two are." He pointed between them with a raised eyebrow. Clara and Marcus exchanged a look. "We're talking," Clara said. "Talking." Hank crossed his arms. "With red lips like that? That must have been a very intense conversation." Clara brought her hand to her lips, feeling her face heat up. "I knew it." Hank practically jumped. "I knew it from day one. Cupid radar, remember? My wife says it doesn't work, but it does." He pointed at them triumphantly. "Wait till I tell Mildred." "Hank, maybe we don't need to." Too late, he was already leaving. "All of Asheville will know before lunch. Get ready for visits. And pies. Mildred's going to make at least 3 pies." The door closed behind him. Clara and Marcus were silent for a moment. "Well," she said finally, "I guess now it's official. Asheville decided for us. Seems like it." Marcus took her hand again. "Do you mind?" Clara looked at Emma sleeping, at Marcus's hand in hers, at the uncertain future, but full of possibilities. "No," she said. "I don't think I mind at all." Outside, still raining, Hank Wheeler was already on the car radio, spreading the news. And somewhere in Atlanta, Sloan Whitford's cell phone beeped with a message from an informant. Marcus Ellington had made his choice. Emma was discharged the next day with medical instructions, 3 lollipops from the nurses, and the absolute certainty that she had flown with dragons. The trip back to the cabin was quiet, the good kind of quiet, the one that comes after a storm when everyone is too exhausted to pretend. Emma slept the entire way in Clara's lap. Liam stayed awake, but quiet, holding Mr. Carrot with a care he hadn't shown before. Marcus drove slowly, avoiding potholes as if carrying something too precious to risk. When he finally parked in front of the cabin, Clara let out a sigh of relief. "Home sweet home," she murmured. "Home sweet invaded cabin," Marcus corrected. "Details." They put the children to bed, and then, exhausted, they slept too. Clara in the room with Emma and Liam, Marcus on the sofa next to the plastic brachiosaurus. Neither had the energy to discuss the kiss, the future, or anything that required more than 3 working neurons. The next morning, everything changed. The first gift appeared on the porch before breakfast. Clara opened the door and almost tripped over a huge basket, decorated with pink bows and a card that said, "For Asheville's cutest couple, with love, Mildred, and the entire diner staff." Inside were pies, 3 pies, exactly as Hank had promised. "Marcus?" Clara called. "You need to see this." He appeared with a coffee mug in hand, wisdom, his hair still messy. "What is?" He stopped. "Are those pies?" 3 from Mildred. "Why?" "Apparently we're Asheville's cutest couple now." Marcus blinked. "It's been 1 day since we kissed." "Once. Technically twice. There was the second one in the hospital parking lot." "Right, twice, and we're already the cutest couple? Welcome to small town." The second basket arrived at 9. This one was from Earl, the man who had offered officiant services. It contained a bottle of wine, 2 crystal glasses, and a laminated pamphlet titled Mountain Weddings Packages and Prices. The third basket arrived at 10:30. It came from the library and contained 3 books: Communication in Relationships, How to Raise Children in Blended Families, and mysteriously, Raising Backyard Chickens, a practical guide. "Chickens?" Marcus stared at the book. "Maybe it's symbolic," Clara suggested. "Symbolic of what?" "I have no idea." Liam appeared in the living room holding Gertrude. Statistically, small communities demonstrate greater interest in other people's relationships due to limited local entertainment. You're basically the town's soap opera. "Thanks for the analysis, Liam." "You're welcome. There's a lady on the porch wanting to know Mom's ring size." Clara and Marcus looked at each other. "Ring size?" Clara repeated. "For the ring," she said. "I told her I didn't know, but that technically rings can be resized." The lady was Dorothy Henderson, owner of Asheville's only jewelry store. It took Clara 20 minutes to convince her they didn't need rings yet. "Yet," Dorothy repeated, beaming. "I'll come back next week." At noon, Marcus decided to go into town to buy milk, a strategic mistake. When he came back, 2 hours later, his face was the shade of someone who had been through a traumatic experience. "What happened?" Clara asked. Marcus just pointed outside. Clara went to the window. Marcus's luxury car was decorated with cans tied to the bumper, colorful ribbons on the antennas, and a huge sign on the back window, "Just date already." "Who?" Clara began. "Everyone. Community effort. The mechanic provided the cans, Mildred supplied the ribbons, and Hank painted the sign personally. With his own hands. He was proud. Genuinely proud." Emma came running. "Mr. Marcus, your car is so beautiful. It looks like a princess car." "Thank you, Emma. That was exactly the look I was going for." Clara bit her lip, trying not to laugh. "It's not funny," Marcus said. "It's a little funny. My car looks like a carnival parade." A romantic parade. Hank's car parked at 3 in the afternoon. He got out carrying a folder. "Couple. I came to offer my professional services." "What services?" Marcus asked fearfully. "Marriage counseling. 12-step program based on 23 years of marriage." "Hank, we're not married yet. That's why it's preventive counseling." Clara took the papers. The first step was, always say yes, dear, even when you don't agree. The 7th was, when you're wrong, apologize. When you're right, apologize too. "Your wife wrote this, didn't she?" Marcus asked. "How do you know?" "A hunch." That night, after the children went to sleep, Clara and Marcus sat on the porch. "This is crazy," Clara said. "The whole town treating us like we're official." "Does it bother you?" "A little." She turned to him. "If it doesn't work out, everyone will know. There's no way to fail quietly here." Marcus understood the fear. "I still haven't resolved things with Atlanta." With the company, with Sloane. I know. As long as that's not settled, there will always be a shadow. And will you be pulled back? Marcus looked at her, at the cabin, at the mountains. No, but I need to make it clear, officially. He took her hand. You deserve someone who's 100% here. Clara squeezed his hand. When are you going to settle it? Soon. Sloane doesn't give up easily. I noticed. But I've chosen. He looked at her. You know that, right? I choose. Every morning you make coffee, I choose again. That's a lot of pressure for coffee. The coffee can handle it. She laughed. Okay, settle your things. We'll be here. Marcus kissed her softly. Thank you for believing. Even when you're scared. Someone has to make this relationship work. And you can't even tie your shoes properly. Liam told you? Liam tells everything. He's basically Hank in miniature. Marcus groaned. Don't compare my future stepson to Hank Wheeler. Future stepson? Are we making assumptions? Dorothy's coming back next week with rings. I'm preparing myself. Clara laughed louder. From inside, the sound woke Emma, who appeared at the porch door dragging Mr. Carrot along the floor. Mommy? Mr. Marcus? Clara turned around. What is it, sweetheart? You should be sleeping. Emma rubbed her eyes, sleepy. I had a dream. A good dream or a bad dream? Good. She walked over to them and squeezed herself between the two on the porch chair, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I dreamed we lived here forever, and Mr. Marcus was the king of the dragons, and there was a dog. A big dog. His name was Pancake. Marcus looked at Clara over Emma's head. Pancake? It's a good name for a dog, Emma said, completely serious. Don't you think? I think, Clara answered softly. It's a perfect name. Emma smiled, satisfied, and rested her head on Marcus's shoulder as if she'd been doing it for years. Mr. Marcus? Yes? You're going to stay, right? Forever? Marcus felt his chest tighten. He looked at Clara, at the stars above them, at the little girl who had invaded his life along with her mother and questioning brother. I will, he said, forever. Emma nodded, as if that settled everything. Great, because Pancake is going to need someone to walk him. 5 minutes later, Emma was sleeping between them, Mr. Carrot fallen on the porch floor, the stars shining over the cabin and the mountains. Clara rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. Forever is a long time, she whispered. I know. Are you sure? Marcus looked at the woman who had invaded his house, at the child asleep in his lap, at the chaotic and imperfect and absolutely wonderful life he had found without looking for it. I've never been more sure of anything. Clara smiled and closed her eyes. And there, on the porch of the cabin that was now theirs, under a sky full of stars and promises, the improvised little family slept together for the first time. The proposal came on a Tuesday, between pancakes and coffee, as if Marcus were asking to pass the sugar. Come to Atlanta with me. Clara choked on her orange juice. Liam looked up from the quantum physics book he was reading at breakfast. Emma continued feeding Mr. Carrot imaginary crumbs, completely oblivious to the moment. What? Clara managed to say after coughing for 30 seconds. Atlanta. With me. All three of you. Marcus said this as if it were the most logical thing in the world. I have a house there. Big, with enough rooms for everyone. You have a house. Technically it's a mansion, but I don't like that word. It sounds pretentious. Because it is pretentious, Marcus. Mansions are pretentious by definition. It has a pool, he offered, as if that solved everything. Clara looked at him, then at the children, then at the cabin around them. The cabin that had become home in the last few weeks. The cabin where she had learned to breathe again. I can't just move to Atlanta. Why not? Because. She searched for reasons. Because it's Atlanta, it's a big city. It has traffic and buildings and people who don't know everyone by name. That's considered an advantage in some circles. Not in my circles. Marcus stood up and walked over to her, kneeling beside the chair in a way that made her heart race. Clara, I've thought a lot about this. I'm not going to abandon the company. It's 10 years of work, and despite everything, it's still part of who I am. But I'm also not going to abandon you. He took her hand. So the only solution is to bring the two worlds together. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Marcus smiled. That smile she was starting to recognize as, I have a crazy plan, but it's going to work. Do you remember the chicken book the library sent? Clara blinked, confused by the change of subject. The practical guide? That one. I read it. You read a book about raising chickens. I did. And I also read about urban gardens and about how to transform large spaces into more welcoming environments. He stood up and started walking around the kitchen, gesturing as he spoke. The mansion has a huge backyard I've never used. I always thought it was a waste, but I didn't know what to do with it. Now I know. What are you suggesting? Garden. Chickens. A porch with rocking chairs just like this one. He turned to her. We can have a piece of the countryside in the middle of Atlanta. And on weekends, holidays, vacations, we come back here to Asheville, to the cabin. Clara was silent, processing. You want to raise chickens at your mansion in Atlanta? I do. Real chickens that lay eggs and make noise at 5 in the morning? Exactly. The neighbors are going to hate you. The neighbors already hate me. I never go to their parties. Liam finally closed the book. Statistically speaking, he said, adjusting the imaginary glasses he didn't wear but pretended to wear when he wanted to look intellectual. Atlanta offers significant advantages. Greater access to educational resources, libraries with more extensive collections, and… He made a dramatic pause. The private school in Atlanta has a gifted program. Marcus and Clara turned to him. How do you know that? Clara asked. I researched it. While you were busy being romantic on the porch, I was planning my academic future. Liam crossed his arms. The program accepts students starting at 7 years old and has an elite university acceptance rate of 94%. You're 7 years old, Clara said, and I'm gifted, the perfect combination. Marcus hid a smile. And you, Emma? Clara turned to her daughter. What do you think about living in Atlanta? Emma finally looked up from Mr. Carrot. Can Pancake come? Who's Pancake? My dog. You don't have a dog. Not yet, but Mr. Marcus promised. Clara turned to Marcus. You promised a dog? I may have mentioned the possibility of perhaps eventually maybe getting a pet. He said I could have a big dog named Pancake, Emma corrected, and that he would have a little house in the yard near the chickens. A little house near the chickens. Yeah, so he can protect them from the wolves. There are no wolves in Atlanta, Emma. We don't know that for sure, Liam intervened. The urban coyote population has grown significantly in the last decade. Clara rubbed her temples. Let me understand. You want me to move to a mansion in Atlanta where we're going to have a garden, chickens, a giant dog named Pancake, and my 7-year-old son is going to enter a gifted program while reciting statistics about urban coyotes. Basically, Marcus confirmed. This is insane. Completely. It doesn't make any sense. None. Clara looked at him for a long moment. At the man who had invaded her life the same way she had invaded his cabin. At the impossible and crazy and absolutely perfect future he was offering. All right, she said. All right, let's go to Atlanta. Emma jumped from the chair. Pancake? Liam nodded, satisfied. A statistically sound decision. Marcus crossed the kitchen and kissed Clara as if the world were ending and beginning at the same time. You won't regret it, he whispered against her lips. I probably will, but it'll be an adventure. The news spread through Asheville in record time. Hank Wheeler appeared at the cabin 2 hours later, with red eyes and a trembling mustache. You're abandoning us, he said, his voice choked. After everything we've been through together. Hank, you've known us for 3 weeks. 3 intense weeks, weeks of growth, of connection. He sniffled. I saw this love being born. I helped cultivate it, and now you're leaving and abandoning me here alone. You have a wife. She doesn't appreciate my gossip like you appreciate it. Mildred arrived next, carrying a stack of pies that defied gravity. 5 pies, she announced, depositing the tower on the kitchen table. 1 for each day of travel. You're going to eat pie for breakfast, lunch, and dinner until you get to Atlanta. The trip to Atlanta takes 6 hours, Marcus said. Then you'll have leftover pie. What a tragedy. Dorothy Henderson appeared with an updated ring catalog. I expect to be invited to the wedding, she said, pointing at Marcus. I've been saving the perfect ring since the day you arrived, size 7.5. I have a 6th sense for these things. We're not engaged yet, Clara said. Yet. Dorothy, Hank and Mildred said in unison. On the morning of departure, the street in front of the cabin looked like a farewell parade. Earl brought a bottle of wine for the first night in the big city. The mechanic showed up with a toolkit because rich people's cars always have problems. The librarian brought 3 more books about raising chickens to supplement the studies. And Hank was trying to get into the car trunk. Hank, what are you doing? Marcus asked, watching the deputy fold himself at anatomically questionable angles. I fit. I know I fit. I just need to find the right position. You're not going to Atlanta in my trunk. I can be your deputy there. Atlanta needs good deputies. Atlanta has an entire police force, but they don't have my Cupid radar. Hank finally gave up, emerging from the trunk with his uniform wrinkled and his mustache crooked. You're coming back, right? You promise? Clara walked over to him and did something that surprised everyone. She hugged Hank Wheeler. We promise, she said. Every holiday, every weekend we can. This cabin is still ours. Hank sniffled against her shoulder. I'll take care of it while you're gone. I'll check the windows and scare off invaders and use it as an excuse to gossip about us to the whole town? Maybe a little of that too. Clara laughed and stepped back. Marcus put the last bags in the car. The children were already in the back seat, Liam reading about quantum physics, Emma talking to Mr. Carrot about the adventure that awaited them. Clara stopped in front of the cabin and looked at it one last time. The porch where she had coffee with Marcus, the kitchen where she had made cookies with the children, the room where she had cried from fear and hope in equal parts. This cabin had saved her, had given her a roof when she had nothing, had given her a second chance when she thought she didn't deserve any. Marcus appeared beside her. We'll come back, he said, as if he could read her thoughts. I know. Whenever you want, just say the word. I know. Clara took a deep breath. It's just that I never thought it would hurt to leave a place I invaded without permission. Marcus smiled. Technically, you had permission. You just didn't know you had it. That doesn't make sense. It does to me. He took her hand. You belong to this cabin, and this cabin belongs to you, no matter where we live. Clara squeezed his hand. Does Atlanta have good libraries? The best. And gifted schools for annoyingly intelligent boys? Top-notch. And space for a giant dog named Pancake? Huge yard, with room for the chickens too. Clara sighed. All right then, let's go before I change my mind. They got in the car. Marcus started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Clara watched Asheville get smaller and smaller, Hank waving frantically, Mildred wiping her eyes with her apron, Dorothy holding the Ring catalog against her chest like a promise, and the cabin, on top of the hill, waiting for them. Mommy? Emma's voice came from the back seat. Yes, sweetheart? When we get to Atlanta, will Pancake already be there? Not yet, Emma. First we need to settle in. But soon. Clara looked at Marcus. He was smiling. Soon, she promised. Very soon. Emma smiled and went back to talking to Mr. Carrot. Liam turned a page in his book. And Marcus, holding Clara's hand while driving toward the future, thought that for the first time in 10 years he was going home. Not to the mansion in Atlanta, to the place where his family was. Marcus's mansion was exactly as Clara had imagined, huge, intimidating, and completely soulless. At least that's how it was in the first few days. The children ran through the echoing hallways as if they were exploring an abandoned castle. Emma got lost 3 times a day. Liam mapped the entire house in a notebook, including escape routes in case of statistically unlikely emergency. Clara felt like an invader again, only this time in a house that really wasn't hers. But Marcus kept every promise. In the first week, the rocking chairs arrived for the back porch. In the second, he hired a landscaper to design the garden. In the third, a mysterious package arrived from Asheville, a disassembled chicken coop with a note from Hank that said, "So you never forget where you came from. P.S. The chickens arrive on Friday." The chickens arrived on Friday. Clara named them Mildred, Dorothy, and Hank, which made the original Hank cry with emotion when he heard over the phone. And in the 4th week, a golden retriever puppy appeared at the door, with a red bow and a tag that said Pancake. Emma didn't let go of the dog for 72 straight hours. She slept with him, ate with him, tried to take him into the bath with her. Pancake, for his part, seemed to have decided that Emma was his favorite human and followed her everywhere, like a furry, clumsy shadow. The mansion started to come alive. But one thing was still missing. On Monday of the 5th week, Marcus walked into the company's conference room with a calm he hadn't felt in months. Sloan was already there, impeccable as always, with a folder of documents and that calculated smile. Around the table, the other board members watched in silence. Marcus, Sloan indicated a chair. What a surprise, you finally decided to show up. I show up when it's necessary, Sloan. Today is necessary. The board is concerned about your distraction, your prolonged absence, your new priorities. Marcus didn't sit in the chair she indicated. He walked to the head of the table, his rightful place, and stood looking at each person present. "Let's be direct," he said. "I know what's happening. I know about the meetings I wasn't invited to. I know about the conversations regarding my leadership ability. I know that you, Sloan, are trying to push me out of my own company." Sloan opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus raised his hand. "I'm not finished." He leaned his hands on the table. "I built this company from scratch, 10 years. Every contract, every client, every decision that brought us here went through me. And in the last few months, while I was distracted," he made air quotes, "our profits increased 12%. 12, you can check." The board members exchanged glances. "So here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued. "I remain as majority partner. I continue making the final decisions, but I'm not going to live for this company anymore. I'm going to live with this company. It's part of my life, not my entire life. And if the board doesn't agree," Sloan asked, her voice icy, "the board will agree, because the numbers don't lie, and because everyone in this room knows that without me, this company wouldn't exist." Silence. Marcus straightened up and adjusted his jacket. "You can continue as a partner, Sloan, but the rules have changed. My priorities have changed. And if that doesn't work for you, the door is open." Sloan remained motionless for a long moment. For the first time since they'd known each other, she didn't have a sharp response, didn't have a counterattack. Just the realization that she had lost, not the company, but the battle for control of Marcus. "All right," she said finally, her voice neutral, "your rules." Marcus nodded and walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "Oh, and Sloan?" She looked up. "I'm getting married. Soon. You're not invited." The door closed behind him with a soft and definitive click. The following months passed like a dream Clara didn't want to wake from. Liam entered the gifted program and, as predicted, corrected 3 teachers in the first semester. The coordinator called Clara twice, not to complain, but to ask if she was sure he was only 7 years old. Emma finally gave up on teaching Pancake to sit, but discovered he was excellent at destroying cushions and chasing the chickens around the yard. She considered it a victory. And Clara, after much insistence from Marcus, opened Clara's Cookies, a small bakery in downtown Atlanta that started timidly and became a craze in 3 months. The star-shaped cookies were the most popular, the same ones she had made for Marcus on the first night at the cabin. The mansion no longer felt like a mansion. It felt like a home. And when Thanksgiving arrived, 6 months after that crazy move, Clara woke up to the smell of coffee and the certainty that she finally belonged somewhere. "Good morning," Marcus said when she came down to the kitchen, still in pajamas. "Good morning." She accepted the mug and took a sip. "Perfect. I know, 6 months of practice." Liam appeared carrying a suitcase. "Technically, we should have left 12 minutes ago to maintain the optimal travel schedule." "Good morning to you too, Liam." "Good morning. We're late." Emma came right behind, being dragged by Pancake. "Pancake knows we're going to see Uncle Hank. He's excited." "How do you know he's excited?" "Because he only ate 2 shoes today instead of 3. Clara decided not to question the logic. The road to Asheville felt different now. Shorter, more familiar, as if the mountains were welcoming old friends. When Marcus's car parked in front of the cabin, Clara felt her chest tighten in a good way. "We're here." Emma jumped out of the car before it even stopped completely, Pancake jumping after her. The cabin porch was packed. Hank Wheeler was the first to run toward them, arms open, mustache trembling with emotion. "You came back." He hugged Marcus with surprising strength. "I knew you would come back. I told everyone." "Hank, you're crushing me." "It's the hug of love, Marcus. Accept it." Mildred appeared with a tray of pies. Dorothy came right behind, holding a velvet box that she didn't try to hide at all. "I saved it," she said, discreetly handing the box to Marcus. "Size 7.5, like I said from day one." Marcus tucked it in his pocket with a knowing smile. The Thanksgiving party was everything Clara could dream of. Mildred had made turkey, pies, and 3 more dishes that nobody asked for but everyone ate. Hank told gossip about all the residents of Asheville from the last 6 months, including the fact that Hank the chicken, the one in Atlanta, was clearly the prettiest of the 3, according to reliable sources, which is myself. Liam presented a PowerPoint chart on the tablet about why Thanksgiving is statistically the best holiday, including data on caloric consumption, average family time together, and probability of fights, which was surprisingly low in Asheville. Emma spent the entire afternoon trying to train Pancake to carry a little basket with napkins. Pancake ate the napkins 3 times. "He's almost there," Emma insisted. "Of course he is," Clara agreed, with no conviction whatsoever. When the sun began to set, painting the mountains orange and pink, Marcus took Clara's hand. "Come with me." He led her to the back porch, the same porch where they had sat on the first night, where they had talked about fears and dreams, where everything had started. "Marcus, what?" He knelt down. Clara stopped breathing. "Clara Dawson," he said, pulling the box from his pocket, "you invaded my cabin 8 months ago, without permission, with 2 children, a stuffed rabbit, and 0 shame." "Marcus, let me finish." He opened the box. The ring sparkled under the sunset light. "You invaded my cabin, my routine, my entire life, and I will never ever be able to thank you enough for it." Tears ran down Clara's face. "I spent 10 years building a company, but you taught me to build a home." His voice failed. "I don't want to wake up anymore without you making coffee. I don't want to sleep anymore without the children running through the hallway. I don't want to live anymore without this crazy and perfect family you gave me." "Marcus? Clara Dawson, will you marry me?" The silence lasted 2 seconds. Then Clara threw herself into his arms with such force that they both almost fell off the porch. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, yes." Marcus put the ring on her finger. Perfect size. Dorothy really did have a 6th sense. "I knew it." Hank's shout came from inside the house. "I knew it from day one. Cupid radar, people. Cupid radar never fails." Emma came running onto the porch, holding a handful of flower petals she had collected from Mildred's garden without asking permission. "It's time," she shouted, throwing the petals in the air. The petals fell on Marcus's face, on Clara's hair, on Pancake's snout, who tried to eat them and choked. Liam appeared with a tablet under his arm. "I prepared a presentation about the statistical benefits of marriage. It includes data on longevity, financial stability, and general happiness. There are 47 slides. Can I present now?" "Maybe later, Liam," Clara said, still hugging Marcus. "I also proclaim myself official best man," Hank announced, appearing on the porch with a pie balanced in his hand. "It's tradition. The deputy who predicted the romance is automatically the best man. It's the law." "That's not a law, Hank. It is now. I just made it up, and as local authority, I approve it." Dorothy was already planning the wedding out loud for anyone who wanted to listen. Mildred was listing how many pies would be necessary, at least 15, according to her calculations. Earl was asking if he could officiate the ceremony since he had the pamphlet. And in the middle of all that wonderful chaos, Clara looked at Marcus, at the man who had transformed an invasion into a home, at the future she never imagined she deserved. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For letting me stay. That first night. For not calling the police." Marcus smiled and kissed her forehead. "You gave me cookies. I had no choice." Clara laughed, that laugh he had learned to love more than any sound in the world. Around them, Asheville celebrated. The children ran through the yard. Pancake barked at the shadows. Hank cried on Mildred's shoulder for the 10th time that day. And on the porch of the cabin where everything had started, 2 people who weren't looking for love found something much bigger. They found a home. They found a family. They found a forever. Some fairy tales begin with once upon a time. This one began with an invasion. And it ended exactly where it should. With an imperfect family, a cabin in the mountains, 3 chickens named Mildred, Dorothy, and Hank, a dog who didn't know how to sit, a boy who corrected teachers, a girl who talked to stuffed rabbits, and 2 people who discovered that love doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be real. The end. What did you think of this family that started with an invasion and ended with a forever? Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to receive more touching stories like this one. See you next time.